Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the session today. This session is titled Getting Started with Adobe in Learning and Teaching. My name is Al Briggs. To get started, I'd like to make an acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the people of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations, on whose unceded lands I live and work with my family. I respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders past, present, and emerging. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians and the ancestors of the lands, waters and cultures across Australia, wherever you may be joining us today. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So thank you for joining us. As I said, my name is Al Briggs. I'm a senior learning designer, graphic designer, and education consultant. I've spent 20 years in tertiary education, and my current job, I spend most of my time working with university staff and students, going in and showing them how to get the most out of using Adobe Creative Cloud applications. That's a little bit about me. I hopefully have some of you guys able to go in and use the chat feature through this. The chat feature in this will be monitored, so if you do have questions, please don't keep them in the holster. There will be a Q&A little session at the end of it, so there will be time to go in and answer some of that stuff right at the end. But because this is going to work as a make-along session, I'd really like you to be asking questions as we go. If I'm going too fast, too slow, those sorts of things, more than happy to go in and adjust my pace, because you are my audience and you are the ones who are dictating exactly how this works today. There is a resource that goes along with this, and I'm just going to put it into the chat for the meeting. It's an Express webpage, but because we're focusing on how to go in and use these tools in a learning and teaching method or a situation, what I thought I might do is actually share a PDF with you. A QR code. So if you can grab your phones out, if you've got them available, and just grab this QR code that I'm sharing up on screen. This will put the link to that learning resource directly onto your phone. It's just a little tip. It's something I really like doing in workshops when I'm going in and sharing a resource. And it can be the overheads, it can be a brief lesson plan, it can be, additional resources or support material for after a session, whatever it happens to be. But it's a great way to go in and get students starting to look at using their mobile phone as a learning and teaching tool. So QR codes, I thank COVID for bringing them back into our lives after, many years of them sort of being sitting there on the periphery and going, what the heck's that about? I love them. From a learning and teaching perspective, I think they're incredibly useful. And another bonus is that you can create them directly in Adobe Express, which is the app that we're going to be really focusing on today. So hopefully you've got your phones out, or if you're watching this in playback, you'll be able to obviously just grab this QR code at any stage. The link is in the chat. What that document is, and I'm just going to go in and maximize my screen a little bit. This is an Express web page, and this is what we're going to be making today. It's about getting started in Adobe learning and teaching. So the Creative Cloud, you are aware of what the Creative Cloud is. There is a reason that you are here. You know that the Creative Cloud is a collection of incredibly powerful, amazingly useful, diverse applications that are used across industries, Hollywood, design, advertising, education, for all sorts of wonderful outcomes. From a higher education perspective, and the thing that I would ask you all to do while you're going in and watching this session is put two hats on if you can. Put an educator hat on, but also put a student hat on. So sort of think about whatever your background is or whatever your student's background is. Think about how they might be thinking about using these tools. There are so many digital tools available. We talk a lot about students these days with a focus on digital literacy. But one of the things that I work on really hard is that idea about looking at what digital literacy is and what digital fluency is. So digital natives is what this generation that are coming through now are called. They have grown up with this technology. They've grown up with touchscreens. They've grown up with mobile phones that have got incredibly powerful computers inside of them, with great cameras and great microphone qualities, all those sorts of things. What they're not necessarily really good at is harnessing that I don't want to say for good, but for education. So what they struggle sometimes a bit with is that connection between, here's this amazing little bit of technology that I've got, and here's how I can use it to improve my learning and teaching experience. And that's what this session is really sort of about. So to get thinking about how this stuff works. Now, I've been delivering these workshops for a number of years. Adobe Express has gone through multiple iterations. It started off as Adobe Spark. It became Adobe Creative Cloud Express, now is Adobe Express, and has just in the last couple of weeks also got a beta launch. And we'll spend a little bit at the end of the session looking at beta, because there's some amazing features that will be coming into Express at the end of the year. And so I highly recommend that you start having a bit of a play. I guess the thing to keep in mind with Adobe Express is it is simple. This is an hour-long session. By the end of this hour, if you follow along with me, you will all be published web designers. Not necessarily great published web designers, but you will be published web designers. You'll understand how it works. You'll understand how to go and create these. And hopefully it means you can start using them and teaching your students to use them as tools for communication. If you've got any sort of digital presentations that you need to go in and create. And I'm going to pull up a table here so you can see some of the tools and how we can look at using them across higher education. So regardless of your assessments, if there is a component that requires digital presentation and social media, there are tools inside of the Adobe Creative Cloud that will get you started, and ones that you can use for that upskilling process. That, yep, okay, I've got my head around it. I'd really like to give it a crack at pushing it next level. You'll notice Express is primarily sitting in that getting started. Express is one of the tools that Adobe refers to as being a low lift, high impact tool. So while it's as powerful as programs like Photoshop or Illustrator or InDesign, all of the wiring under the board is hidden away. So you don't have that interface that can be a little bit intimidating, where you've got, toolbars on your left and windows over on your right and all sorts of things going on all over the place. Everything is hidden back. Everything is pared back. It's sort of like designing with training wheels, but also with a really supportive parent behind you. You've probably got some floaties on. You're definitely wearing a stack hat, showing my age there by referring to stack hats. Shout out to stack hats. They kept me alive for many, many years. But yeah, look, this is a safe play space, and it's a really amazing tool to start on that creative journey. The one thing I would recommend, if you are looking at incorporating this sort of stuff into your learning teaching practice, is expose the students early on. Get them started. What we're going to be doing today, like I said, is creating a web page. And this is an activity you can do with your students at orientation or at the very start of the student journey as an icebreaker, as a way of getting students to introduce themselves to each other, as a way to go in and start creating a digital portfolio that they will build on across their education journey. Obviously, we've got all of the other categories there too: design, illustration, photography, video, audio, motion graphics, prototyping, UX and UI, and portfolio web. We're focusing very much on this idea of presentation right at the top. All of this is in the slides in the Express page that I've shared with you, so please feel free to go in and use and abuse this at whim. So why Adobe Creative Cloud? Well, we're looking at creating engaging professional content, preparing students for the future workforce. Always looks great if you can say that you know how to use some of the Adobe tools in your CV. Improving digital literacy skills, improving soft skills more importantly. So things like looking at creativity, teamwork, and critical thinking, and also meeting students at their point of need. So again, this is that idea: engage students right at the start of their student journey. And then this doesn't become a tool that when you get to week 12 and say, oh, create a web page in Express, they sit there and go, oh, did we do that in like week 4? Was that, make it part of the journey, make it a really, useful part of the education plan, where if they have to do any sort of reflective journaling, or if they have to go in and do a summary of their weekly learnings or something like that, they can actually put that inside of a document that they can build on. They can access from any computer in the world that's got an internet connection, so long as they're logging in with their student ID. And they can share it with anybody in the world who's got an internet connection, because it's hosted on Adobe's own servers. So really, really useful. That's enough of an intro. Let's get started. So we're going to be going in and opening up Adobe Express. You'll see there's some more information inside of this web page that talks about some of the bits and pieces we can do. And then you'll see in there's also one that says staff introductory web page. And that's what we're going to be going in and looking at creating today. So the page, and I hate doing this because it's a picture of me. We're going to go in and just make a web page. We're going to either do a split layout. This is what a split layout looks like. And I've got a really big monitor at home, so that picture is actually larger than life, and it sort of scares me a little bit. It's also a slightly older photo, so I've got significantly more grey going on there. This is a glide show. This is the one I'm going to really recommend that we look at doing. This is what we're going to be playing with, because it's essentially like a slide inside of PowerPoint, but so much prettier, so much more useful, and really, really easy to go in and play around with. And that's it. We're going to put in a couple of buttons for contact details. We're going to go in and look at how credits are going in and added. We're going to go in and publish that. I'm going to show you how you can go in and share it. And then, like I said, we're going to have a little bit of a play with some of the stuff inside of Express Beta. As I go through this, please feel free to go in and use the chat function to ask any questions that you may have. I'll try and answer them as best I can as we go through this. I try and make sure that I'm explaining everything clearly. I will be going back and forth and going in and showing all these little bits and pieces on how this is all going to go in and work. But like I said, if you do have any questions at all, just reach out. Or if you're watching it in replay, hit pause, catch up, rewind it, watch me again, not a problem. I'm going to go in and I'm going to open up Express. And what I'm going to do when I open up Express is show you what it looks like. So Express, I consider this to be sort of like my Swiss Army knife. Now, my background, as I said, is 20 years in tertiary education. I've been a graphic designer for 25. I've taught these tools for a number of years. I have worked with these tools since before Creative Cloud was a thing. I use Express almost exclusively now because it does so much of my daily bits and pieces in this really simple interface. And like I said, I can jump onto literally any computer in the world that's got an internet connection. I can log in with my details and I can get cracking on my work. I can add to it. I can share it. I can do anything that I need. So in terms of accessibility for students, it's a wonderful thing. They don't need a $3,500 computer or a $4,000 mobile phone to be able to go in and work on this. They just need an internet connection. You'll notice in here, you've got a lot of templates sitting through there. At the very top of my screen, you could probably see it says, that's probably a little bit small, but it says open Adobe Express Beta, and that's what we'll do at the end. There are some quick actions in there, including image adjustments, so looking at things like removing backgrounds, and I'm going to show you that because it's one of the things Adobe is really proud of, and they should be, because I used to teach a course on Photoshop where we did things called complex masking, selecting people out of backgrounds and making sure that their hair all looked good. Really complex process, took a long time to master. Now it's with the click of a button. So I'm going to go in and show you literally how easy it is. And this is with a photo that I took last week. So it's not a here's one I prepared earlier, but it sort of is. I can go and browse on my device. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to grab my photo. You can see there, I took it on the 6th of July. There I am. I look almost the same. I think my hair was center parted then and seems to go into a right part today, but that's okay. I'm talking to you in a nonsensical fashion because I'm distracting you from the fact that it's working its magic and removing the background. But that's how quick it is. I can then go in and customize that image. I can go in and I can change the background of it. So I could go in, I could jump inside of Express. I can, by default, it's going to go in and give me a colored background, but I could color it. I could do all sorts of amazing things inside of here once it loads in. I can look at filters. I can look at, I can look at turning my filters on, make it a duotone, make it grayscale. I can look at multiplying it so that we get that sort of dark color from the background going through. I can, if I've got a corporate brand, I can go in and create a brand inside of Express. So I might go in and change that color. here's a brand that I created earlier for myself. So if I had that sort of blue or that blue-gray, I could go in and brand that up. So if you were doing this as an educator, this might be inside of your learning management system, the about the staff page or something like that. You could go in and use this to go in and stylize your headshot really, really easily and quickly. The key is that you probably want to go and have some contrast between you and the background that you're shooting on. So the clearer the contrast, the better it's going to do in terms of that remove background. You're still going to have issues if you're taking a photo of a person with long blonde hair running through a field of wheat. That's nightmare territory. It's why retouchers love bald people. Bald people are very easy to go in and contour. I'm not bald. I'm nearly bald. But yeah, my hair is springy enough that it seems to work quite well when I go in and do a remove background. So this is just a project. This works as a project in here. It's automatically saving as I go. So you'd never need to save inside of Express. It will save as you're working, which is a wonderful thing because it means you never lose any of the stuff that you're going in and creating. Up the top here, I've got a blue button that says share. I've got download. So if I download this image, I can download it as a PNG, so a portable network graphic. I can download it as a PNG with a transparent background. So if I want to keep that background removed, I can go in and do that. I can save it as a JPEG. I can save it as a PDF. You'll notice here at the bottom, it says new schedule to your content to social media. There's all sorts of social media bits and pieces. We don't have time for it in this particular session, but I would strongly recommend at the end of this session, have a play in Express for 30 minutes. That is all you will need to get an understanding of how incredibly powerful and useful it is. So I'm going to download this as a JPEG, start download, and it's downloaded that. It's done. It's all good. I click on my little A icon in the top left-hand corner to go back to my home page. And that's all I wanted to do with that particular photo. One, it shows you guys how to use the quick actions. Two, it's something that is actually practical. It's something that you will use on a regular basis. And you don't need to go in and try and do it online or open up Photoshop. And you can do this in Photoshop. But if you don't need to, because you don't know really how to do it in Photoshop, and you can just do it through a browser on any computer in the world, give it a go. You can also do this on your phone. So there is an Adobe Express app for your phone, so you can go in and use your camera. And again, this is a really powerful tool for students. So if you're going in and you're doing field trips, or you're doing work integrated learning, or you've got students going out on excursions, regardless of whether it's primary, tertiary, anywhere, you can get students going and using their mobile phones for education and not for TikTok. It also means that they can go in and they can record as they're going, and rather than having to wait until after the fact to go in and do their reflective work, they can do it on site. So it's a really great way to go in and get that creativity inside of that classroom setting, even if you're outside of the classroom, if that makes sense. All right, let's give it a go. Let's take a look. So we've got our quick actions down there. You'll see over on the left, you've got things like projects. So that's where you can go in and organize your project. You can make folders. You can share your work with other people. You can create brands. So you might want to go in and universityify your work, or you might want to go in and make it look like it's, work from RMIT or from Swinburne or from University of Sydney or wherever you happen to be. You can go in and you can create that brand really, really easy, and then just apply it across your assets. It's not going to change the content. It's just going to change the appearance. So it means you can go in and tweak them. You can adjust them if you're doing this for your side hustle, or if the students want to go in and create their own personal brand, they can also go in and create this stuff really, really easily. Top left-hand corner, you've got a big circle with a plus. Anywhere you see a big circle with a plus on it in Express, that's somewhere that you can go in and create or add content. So we're going to click on that. You'll see when we do that, on the left-hand side, we've got all of the options that we can make. So when it says things like flyer is a poster, essentially. You can have multiple pages, so you can go in and do anything with you. If you want to go in and set up any combination of text and image, or text only or image only, Express is a fantastic go-to tool to do it quickly. Over on the right, you've got all those quick actions. But we're going to this option 3 up from the bottom over on the left that says web page. So that's just, again, click on the little circle with the plus, go down to web page, and it's going to pop up with a screen that is what is known as a WYSIWYG. So this is a what you see is what you get interface. What you're working on is pretty much what you're going to see when it's published. I'm going to go in and change my theme up here so that it matches exactly what you see. You will be seeing this theme as the default. The theme is called Crisp. Top right-hand corner where it says themes. These are all of the themes that you have inside of Express. So there's Storybook, there's Trek, Nightcap, Crisp, Whimsy, Vintage, etc., etc. Play through. You can go in and add your own brand if you want at the end of it. So here's the one that I've gone in and created. That's one that I will go in and work to later. But Crisp is a nice, simple, straightforward one. Clean, thin sans serif typeface, white background, puts the focus on the image and the content of the words rather than highlighting the actual words as a design element themselves. All right, it's asking us for 3 bits of information. We've got to go in and put in a title, we've got to put in a subtitle, and we've got to go in and put in a photo for the background. So for the title, I'd recommend you go in and put in your name. For the subtitle, it might be, you know, your position at the university or at the school. It might be the class that you're teaching. It might be, if you're using this for students, you might be considering that they start thinking about using this as a digital portfolio. So that might be their subtitle. So I'm just going to go in and literally type in my name. What are we going to say? Learning designer. Make sure I can spell. And that's it as far as those 2 bits of information. I can obviously go in and change these at any stage. But for now, I'm happy with those 2. Little circle with the plus at the bottom. That is where, like we said before, anywhere you see that circle with a plus, that's where you can add stuff. And depending on where you are inside of your Express page, you can add different things. Because this is a background image for our cover, it's letting us choose a photo. We could make it a short cover, or we could make it a split layout. So a short cover is like a little banner heading that you have at the top of a web page. Split layout obviously is half image, half text. We're just going to go in and choose photo. When we do that, our contextual Adobe stock menu pops up over on the right. And you'll see you've got options there to go in and search through Adobe stock, or you can upload your own photo. So this is where you can go in and search for any image that you've created on your computer. In this case, we will eventually be going in and pulling in that photo that we created with the removed background, or I will in this case. If you click on the triple dots, you can see there are other sources you can go in and pull stuff from. So you can, if you've got an Adobe stock photo library set up, you can go in and take a photo with your camera directly on your computer. If you've got Lightroom, Creative Cloud, Dropbox, Google Drive, or Google Photos, you can go in and source images directly from there as well. But for now, I'm going to go in and put in some sort of graphic. It's a Thursday morning. I'm located on, as I said before, Wurundjeri country down in Melbourne. I'm going to go in and put in something like winter morning Australia in my search. Quite specific, but I get 6,941 results from Adobe stock. So that's quite a bit. That's not bad. I don't want to search through all of them because that would probably be a very long process. You'll notice if I go in and put in something more generic like design or graphic design or something like that, you'll get literally millions. So there are over 200 million photo assets that you can use from Adobe stock inside of your work. They're all high quality, they're all fantastic, and it makes your work it gives you that extra little pop. I'm going to go in and choose, let's see, let's go with that one. That looks quite nice. So we've got our trees. What I've got now is a little prompt that pops up at the bottom of the screen that says scroll to start writing your story. So we've done the 3 basics. We've got a title, we've got a subtitle, and we've got our background image. I'm just going to give you one little tip before we go in and start creating the content, and that is these sites look amazing on mobile. When you're doing it on mobile, if you've got an image like this in your background, you may decide that you actually prefer one particular element of the image if it's going to be changed in terms of its formatting. So when you're looking at a web page on phone Obviously, it's not in that landscape format like you're probably watching this on, where it's wider than it is tall. It's going to be the other way around. It's going to be taller than it is wide. And I'll give you a little tip on how you can go in and make that look as good as you possibly can on your mobile device. So when you click anywhere on this image screen, you'll notice you get this little contextual menu popping up again. We can replace that image at any stage. We can delete it, start again. We can go in and make it a short cover. We can make it a split layout, but we've also got this focal point option. And when you click on focal point, you'll notice in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you get this little preview of what it's going to look like on mobile phone. You'll see it says drag to choose focal point, and by default, it just does it to the center. It just does it to the very middle of the image that you've chosen, which this is a great image for a landscape because it's nice and wide. But you might decide actually the really interesting bit of image inside of there is where that sun is just coming through the trees. So if you take a look and keep your eye on the top right-hand side of the screen, as I drag that focal point across, you'll notice it's not changing what it looks like on desktop, but it is changing what it's going to look like on mobile. And so if I go in and just sort of center those trees, so we've got the light just sort of sitting a little bit to the side, it won't be interfering with the text that sits on front of it. That's all good. I can now click on the little blue button at the top that says save. And I know that when I go in and send this out, or when I go in and use this on a mobile device or share it with my students or colleagues or whomever it is, they're going to get the optimum experience when they're going in and using it on their mobile phone. So that's it. We could publish this at this stage. It would be a terrible web page because there's no content at all. It's just got my name, my title, and a background image. That's not a web page. I mean, yeah, okay, look, we can argue it's a web page, but it's not a web page. Trust me. We're going to go in and put some content in here. So I'm going to scroll to start writing my story. And again, with your teacher and your student hats on, think about how students could go in and use this. This could be for literally any project. If they have to do a research report, if they have to go in and answer questions, you can go in and set up templated elements for them. They can just copy and paste them directly in and have a fantastic web page that you can go in and assess rather than having to go in and read through pages and pages of Word files. So scroll to writing your story. When I do that, again, another circle with a plus, but this time I've got 7 options. And these are the 7 standard options that you have inside of Express. You can always add in photos, text, buttons. You can embed videos from Vimeo, from YouTube, or from Express. You can create photo grids. So if students have to go in and do mood boards, or if they have to go in and do some image explorations, they can go in and do that. You can create a glide show, which is what we showed you before in the teacher example, or a split layout. Now, the split layout, like I said, is going to give you a half image, half text. We did that before. If I go to a half image, half text, you'll see you can click on this little double-headed arrow in the middle and flip it around. So you can have the image going on either side. If I wanted to go in and include my headshot, that's where I could go to my downloads folder. I'll grab my headshot, bring that in. I don't really like that because I think it's too big. I don't really like having my head that big on screen. I think it's a little bit intimidating if you're looking at this on a screen and all of a sudden your head's coming through. So I'm not going to use that particular layout for this one. To get rid of an image or an element inside of Express for a split layout like this, I just need to click in the middle. You'll notice that my mouse icon changes from being a pointed arrow to being a little finger. When I click on that, I can go in and change the image or replace, but I can also just click up there and hit delete to get rid of that section. I'm going to go in and put it in a glide show. Again, it pulls up the Adobe stock interface. It pulls up whatever I searched for last, so I could continue on that same theme, or I could go in and do something very different. Let's go with that same theme. It was a little bit misty when I was walking around this morning. So I'm going to go in and bring in that image. Now, a glide show, you'll notice it says inside of this edit screen, you can have multiple images in here. You can go in and replace them easily. You can delete them. When you go in and put this inside of your document, every image is going to have a floating text box that sits on top of it that you can put content into, which essentially works like a slide inside of PowerPoint. So if you want to go in and set it up so you've got sort of 3 or 4 bits of information, put 3 or 4 slides inside of your glide show. We're just going to do one for now because it's a very quick about me page. Click on save in the top right hand corner to get out of your glide show, and you'll notice that you get this little semi-transparent text box that pops up. Again, it's got a little circle with a plus on it. Bit difficult to see on screen, I'm sure. I can relocate that text box to be centered. By default, it sits on the left. I can center it, or I can right align it really easily. I've got some pre-prepared text that I'm going to go in and put in here. But like I said, this is designed to be a little bit of an introduction. So this might be something that I went in and put inside of my LMS as my, about your teacher page. So when I click on that little plus, you'll notice there's only 4 options here. So we don't have photo grid, we don't have glide show, and we don't have split layout, because you can't do a glide show inside of a glide show. You can't get sort of Inception styles and have this infinitely regressing design. It's not Russian nesting dolls. When I click on the text, I get this little rich text editor that pops up. I can choose a main heading, a subheading. I can do a quotation. I can do a bulleted or numbered list. I can make the text bold, italic, or hyperlinked, and I can change my alignments. So I'm going to go with H1, which is the main heading. I'm going to say about me. You'll notice as I'm typing that in, the text box has now become more opaque, so less transparent. It is easy to go in and see the content inside of that. I've got little circles above and below. So anywhere above and below an element that I'm including in, I can add extra stuff in. And that's how you go in and add bits and pieces inside. So if I hit the enter key or the return key, it goes back to regular text now. And here's some text that I prepared earlier that I'm just going to go in and drop in. So you'll see there are 4 paragraphs in there. And in between each paragraph, I've got this little circle with a plus. Now, what Express is not brilliant at is being a text editor. It will go in and highlight if you've got a spelling mistake. But if you're writing reams and reams of text and you want to go in and do spell checks and all those sorts of things to it first, my recommendation would always be use a different word processing piece of software to go in and write that content, edit it, and then bring it into Express. So Express is for the presentation. You can obviously go in and use it for the creation, but sometimes, particularly if you're doing a long document, or if you're copying across, if you want to go in and make your PowerPoint slide deck into an Express page, for example, easy to just copy and paste. I'm going to go in and add in that headshot that I created before now by clicking on this little plus, and I'm going to go in and add in a photo. So click on photo. This time, rather than going through one of their photos or one of Adobe Stock's photos, I'm going to bring mine in, go to upload photo, select that image that I had, click on it, and it pops it in. And it sits it inside of that frame, and that sits okay. I'm pretty good with that. Now, there's only one other thing that I want to do before we go in and look at publishing this thing out, and that's going in and adding in a button. So if you're doing this as a CV, you might, or if your students are doing it as a digital folio, they might want to go in and have a contact point. So you can set up a contact point. If you click on a button, so this is just on the little circle with a plus, click on button, asks us for 2 things. What do we want the button to say, and what do we want the button to do? So if we want to go in and link this to, say, a LinkedIn profile, or some research that we've done online, or social media channels, or whatever we want it to go to, we literally go in and type in that. So find me on LinkedIn, and then have your LinkedIn link at the bottom. But you can also set this up as an email link. So if I wanted this as a way for my students to potentially be able to contact me inside of business hours, I could say contact me Monday to Friday, 9 to 9:14 a.m. Inside of that, rather than going in and just typing in my email address, I would need to actually go in and put in what is called a mail to, and that is just M-A-I-L-T-O with a colon, and I'll type it in so you can see it, M-A-I-L-T-O with a colon, no spaces, and then just your email address. When you go in and create that button, anybody who's looking at that page online, when they click on that button, it will open up their mail application with an email address to you that they can then go in and write. And it's just a nice, easy way to go in and get that communication. You may not want to go in and share that with your students, but if you're doing this sort of stuff to share with colleagues, or if you're looking at award applications or anything like that, it's a really great way to go in and share your contact details very, very quickly. So they don't have to be going in and out of that document to navigate through to get to a contact point with you. Click on save, and you'll see that button sitting in there now. Now, one final thing just before we go in and publish this thing, we've got everything that we wanted. We've got our homepage, which is a really lovely image. It's got a title, it's got a subtitle. We've got a split layout, and you'll notice, a glide show, and you'll notice as I'm scrolling through the glide show, it does this gradual panning of the image behind. So it's got this idea of movement, and it does that as it goes through that content that was included. When I get to the end, I end up with another little circle with a plus, and again, I can just add content. So you can add content at any stage throughout this document. Again, you'll notice I didn't save at all along the way. As I was going in and creating, it's constantly saving. You can see up in the top left-hand corner where we've got our home icon, the Adobe Express icon and web page. If I go in and add in content, it'll pop up and just say saving up there, just where my little red icon is. Yep, so we can see it says saving. Again, means that we're not ever going to lose any of our work because it's constantly saving in the background into your online Adobe server account. At the top of the screen here, I've got a couple of options that I can go in and look at. If I go to preview, it's going to basically collapse it down so that wherever we've got these little circles with the plus, they're going to be gone. So it's going to collapse it down and give us an impression of what it'll look like when it's actually published. So click on preview, and you can see this is what it's going to look like as a web page, and it's pretty lovely. We haven't done a lot of work here. We've literally just gone in and put in a home page element. We've put in a single glide show with a little bit of text. It's got a button. That button will now work, so you can go in and test the functionality of all this stuff before you actually go in and launch the site live. And the other really cool thing, again, from an education perspective, is right at the very bottom, you'll see that there's a little credit section. So any of the images that you use from Adobe stock will automatically be credited at the bottom of the document when you go in and publish this. It's not proper Harvard referencing or Chicago manual or style manual referencing or anything like that, but it does go in and show you where you got that information from. And I'll show you in a minute how you can go in and edit that if you need to go in and do that. So if students or teachers do need to be going in and referencing where the images came from, it's a very, very simple process because this is an editable text field when you go in and publish. So you can go in, and you'll also notice, obviously, my headshot is not on Adobe stock, so that's not included in the credits. So I might want to go in and include something like all other images courtesy of the author, or something along those lines. I can click on the little X in the top right-hand corner, or just hit my escape key on my keyboard to get out of my preview mode. And the other one, it's a little bit of an unsung one, is present mode. And present mode, this is where I feel that Adobe Express web pages should be your go-to for any learning and teaching material that you ever need to create, because they are so easy to go in and create, for one, to use, to navigate. If I click on present, it's going to take my image full screen, or my page full screen. You'll notice there are now these little contextual arrows that pop up at the bottom right-hand corner, a little up and a little down arrow. I can use my mouse to navigate through them. Or I can just use the left and right arrows on my keyboard. Or if you've got a snazzy presenter with a forward and back function, it will also work with that. And when I do that, I can actually click through from slide to slide. And so you'll see here, it's going in and pulling to the next section. So because the text fits nicely on the screen, but not with the image, it's going in and first shooting onto the image and the about me, and then it's going to the text, and then it's going to the call for action. And then if I keep going through, it goes to the credits, etc., etc. So it's a really great way to get students, if they're going in and putting this together as a research report, to also use it as a presentation. So they don't need to be going in and doing two separate documents. They don't need to go in and create a Word document and create a PowerPoint of this project. They can do it all in one. Again, hit escape or just click on the X to get out of that preview window. And we're back in our edit window. What we now want to go in and do is click on that share option. You'll notice under share, there are 4 options. You can invite other people into the document. So you can have multiple people. If you've got group work, for example, you can have multiple people going in and working in the document. At the moment in Adobe Express, you can only have one user in that document at a time. Inside of beta, there are some additional features that are being explored with collaboration where you can have multiple participants inside of a file at a time. But for now, it's just one user at a time. You can send it to Google Drive, which will just send a backed up copy to Google Drive. You can print it. And one of the great things inside of print is you can also go in and save it out as a PDF. So if you're using the Google Chrome browser, you can save this document as a PDF. And you probably, in your learning management system, have a requirement for students to submit a digital artifact that's not just a web address. This is how you go in and do it. So just under the print menu, destination, you can change it from your regular printer up to save as PDF. It's not going to look as pretty, but in terms of that digital artifact that you need for retaining student records, works a dream. Up the top there, we've got our publish and share link though, and that's what we want to go in and look at. If I click on the publish and share link, I get my little window popping up that gives me a couple of bits of information that I need to fill in. So the title is going to pull from whatever we put in as our title. You might want to change that from being your name to being, reflective journal or CV or whatever you want. All that's going to do is change what the browser tab appears as. It's not going to change. It doesn't mean that if you go in and do a Google search for Outbreak CV, this web page is going to appear. It's hosted on Adobe server. It's a public link in the sense that anybody who has the link can access it, but it's not searchable through your Google, file search. The author details by default are turned off, and the author details will come directly from your learning institution login. So if you have a preferred name that is not that name, my actual name is Alistair. I'm thinking about going back to it now because now when I write Al, it looks like AI, and I've actually been mislabeled by 4 separate baristas at coffee shops as AI. Obviously, everybody's just talking about AI, so now Al has somehow become AI. I always thought that Al was easier than Alistair, but now we all have to reconsider life in a post-COVID world, right? Wonderful times. So you can turn those author details on and off just by clicking on that little slider. And that's just going to go in and put it, excuse me, at the bottom of the page, just above where that credits section is. If it's group work, obviously they're editable text fields. You can go in and put multiple people in. The photo credits, as I said before, that is a completely editable text field. You can go in and put in correct referencing if you need to. Like I said before, because I've got that headshot in there, I might want to go in and say something like all other images courtesy of the author. Oh, and I've just put that in the wrong spot, but that's the beautiful thing about going in and editing these things, is you can easily change it. If you've made any changes in there and you go, actually, I want to get rid of that, you can just click on the restore button and it'll get rid of that information. When I'm good to go, when I've sorted out what my title is, I could go in and choose a category if I wanted to. It doesn't change anything. It's not going to make it more searchable or less searchable if you go in and have a category. If I click on create link, I'm going to get this little blue progress bar at the top. Generally, it's going to take 10 to 15 seconds to go in and publish this web page because it's been saving as we've been going. It's not going to take a long time to actually go in and publish it out into the world. That's it. That's now published. And if you've been following along with me, it's taken us 44 minutes and I've detoured a little bit about nomenclature. I've detoured a little bit about my receding hairline, but I have made you published web designers in 45 minutes, which I reckon is pretty cool. That is the shareable leap. And you'll notice it's not express.adobe.com/Outbreak CV. It's an alphanumeric sequence. That is the link that is going to stay with that page for as long as I want that page published. You'll notice I can go in and I can share it directly with Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk. I can share it in Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. I can email it out to students or colleagues, or I can pull out the embed code. If I wanted to potentially embed this page inside of my learning management system, I can do that too. Best thing to do is to copy that link, because once you've copied that link, you can go in and test it to see what it looks like in the browser window. But you can also do a really cool thing, which is this. So if I copy that, get out of my window by clicking on the X, go back to my home screen up here, I can go in here under my create option, the little circle with the plus. And if I go to generate QR code, that web page that I've just made, I can paste that URL directly in there, click on create QR code, and I can download it as, again, a PNG, a JPEG, or an SVG. I can change the style of it if I'm more interested in circles with my QR codes. I want to go in and make it blue or green or red or orange. I could go in and do that. I'm a traditionalist. I like my QR codes black and white and right angles. Thank you. Click on download. And I can then go in and share that with my students, or I can share that with my colleagues, or I can share that with whomever I want. If you guys go in and grab your phone now and click on that, you will see that web page that I just created in our session today. So that's how easy it is to go in and create. But Al, what if I need to go in and make a change? How do I go in and make a change? Does it go in and automatically update my published page? No, it doesn't. And I'm glad you asked that question. I can go in through my projects to find the most recent project. So if I click on projects, you can see here's some others I've prepared earlier, obviously. There's the project down there. If I'm on that home page, I'll notice it pops up in my recent ones down at the bottom. The same document, I can click on it to go back into my edit window. Now, if I wanted to go in and change this, if I decided actually that background image isn't really suitable, I don't really want a winter's morning image, I want to go in and replace it with, I'm a graphic designer at heart. Let's go in and put in graphic design. Inside of graphic design, you're going to get a lot of sort of color books and tattooed arms and things. I think that's an overridden stereotype. I don't think that all graphic designers necessarily have arms covered in tattoos. Some of us do. Let's go in and just pull out one that's got a nice little bit of color. This one is a sort of personal favorite image. I just think it's absolutely spectacular. Go in and put that in. Because I've made a change to the page now, if I go in and do a search, it's not going to show me my refreshed page. I need to republish it. And to republish it, I just go under my share option again, go to publish and share link. And this time there'll be a little lightning bolt that pops up and says, hey, you made some changes. Do you want to update the link? It's not going to change the link. It's not going to change what that shareable link is. It's just going to update what is published. So it also means if you're using this as a learning and teaching tool, if you're doing like your notes or something like that, you could set up a template. You could go in and duplicate it really easily. So you're setting up, a week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lecture series and publish just that home page. So it doesn't have the rest of the content in it, and you're not publishing it until you want the students to access it. So you might not want them to be accessing week 7 material in week 2 because they've got to get through weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 before they get to the week 7 stuff. You can go in and set that up really, really easily. I'll show you very quickly how you can go in and duplicate that file if you are going to go in and use it for it. And then we've got about 10 minutes left, so we can have a little bit of a dive into Express Beta where we can take a look at some of the bits and pieces you can do inside of there. So again, about 10, 15 seconds to go in and create that link. It's now updated it. If I wanted to, like I said, duplicate that, I go through my projects menu. When I click on here, you can see I've got my triple dot icon. I can invite, I can go through the publish again, I can duplicate it. And this is where you can go in and make copies. You can go in and duplicate it, rename it as you go in and duplicate it. I can rename it, I can move it into a folder, I can delete it, and I can also unpublish it. So if I don't want it to be up anymore, or I want it to be pulled down to republish it at a later stage, again, if you're doing, lecture series for your weekly lectures, and you're wanting to pull them down after they've been on, so ready for next semester to go in adjust or whatever it is for the next student cohort, you can unpublish them and then republish. Okay. At the top of the screen, as I said, you'll get to Adobe Express Beta. And if we click on that, you'll notice that the interface looks slightly different. There are a lot more templates. You'll see that the button is still up there, the big circle with a plus on it. And that's great because that's a great button. You'll notice inside of there this time, though, there are a lot more. So many, in fact, that you probably want to go in and do a search if you don't know exactly what it is that you want. But there are templates for things like infographics, a whole bunch of social media, carousels, YouTube videos. But if you want to do album covers or banners, web banners, blog graphics, bookmarks, brochures, business cards, calendars, anything you can think of. If you want to create a rubric in here, you can go in and do it. Literally, I can scroll down and you will see, I hope it's still there, rubric or report card. And there are templates you can go in and use to create these things. So literally thousands of templates. Anything that you can think of that needs to either be displayed on a screen or printed out that combines text and image, you can use Express to create. The idea with Express is that it's the start of a journey of creativity. So you will find that there are limits to this software. You may want to go in and refine your work a little bit more. If you want to go in and choose more intricate typeface selections or go in and have, a lot of combination graphics or interactivity, you might want to be going in and using an application like InDesign. But for most students at that starting point, to build up that digital confidence, to build up that digital fluency right at the start of the student journey, this tool is second to absolutely none. The really awesome stuff that's coming in now is generative AI. The other great thing, just before we get to that, is if you've got Illustrator and Photoshop files that you've saved into your online Adobe account, you can also go in and access them directly inside of Express. So it means that you might go in and put a template together for students who may not have that digital confidence to go in and create the assets inside of Illustrator. But if you've already got them, you can put them inside of an Express document and the students can go in and break them apart or recolor them or use them as a base for a design. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of giving students access to that really interesting information. But this is the bit that we always sort of like to finish a session with, because who doesn't love a little bit of text to image generation? So like we were saying before, a lot of talk about AI. Adobe has developed up their own generative AI. It's been built into the applications for a number of years. It's how you can go in and do things like removing backgrounds really effectively. That's machine learning. It's called Adobe Sensei. It's an engine that sits in underneath all of the major applications inside of the Adobe suite, and it helps to simplify processes that used to be painstaking and time-consuming. Same sort of principle with generative AI. This is machine learning, so it gets better as you go in and iterate and generate these ideas. So you can go in and create an image and use this as a starting point for a design. If you want to go in and create a logo, you might be, it gives you some prompts. Try describing things: environment, people, mood. I'm going to go in and say, let's go with, I ran a workshop with students yesterday, and their prompt was cow, leather, red, dancing. So I'm going to go in and click on generate, and Adobe Express Beta is going to go in and generate an idea. Now I can go in and change this at any point. You can see there are different styles. There we go. We've got a cow wearing what looks like a leather scarf. Also some nice little piercings in the ear. Right, that one's a little bit more funky. Sort of dancing. You will get some odd things. Yeah, this is computer generated. This is not real life. So you end up sometimes with a little odd extra limb or odd tail. You get a lot of really wonderful things. I mean, how cool is that? Like, you want to go in and come up with an idea for an animated character. What a brilliant starting point. And all that this is doing is it's pulling images directly from Adobe stock. So it's not just doing a big sweep of the internet and pulling out all of this copyrighted work by wonderful designers who aren't getting credited for it. It's just using proprietary information. So again, it's a really fantastic starting point if you need to start that idea generation process, or if you don't want students wasting hours and hours doing a Google image search to try and find the perfect image to fit into their work. You can go in and you can create that. You can go in and change the style. So if we want to go in and make it neon, we then just click on neon and generate it, and it's going to update it in a couple of seconds. The thing I like about this is you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get some amazing stuff, and sometimes you get stuff that you just sort of sit and go, yeah, I don't think that's quite right. And the great thing about it, because it's machine learning, you can help it learn. So you can either go in and say, yep, that's really good, or no, that's really bad. So if I clicked on no, that's really bad, say, well, what was working there? Well, it was the poor quality, unexpected results in there, distorted results, submit feedback. And that's going to help the machine learn. It's going to help it get better at doing that sort of process as you go on. You can also do some wonderful things inside of beta with things like text effects. So if you want to go in and make your text look like bubbles or look like popcorn or all sorts of ace things. All of this functionality is in beta. I highly recommend playing with it. Try and break it, because that's what beta versions are all about. You've got to try and push them and see what you can get away with and see what will work and what won't work. All of these features will be integrated into Express by the end of the year. That's the plan. That's Adobe's plan, is to get it all done and dusted so that by the end of Q4, everything is ready to go. So 2024, all of this stuff will be inside of Express. For now, if you need to go back to the previous version, you'll see you've got that little option at the top there that just says go to prior version of Express, and you can jump back in. That's about it from me. So we've actually finished up a couple of minutes early today. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. If there are any questions, we've got a little bit of time in there. I know that it can be a little bit intimidating to go in and post questions online. So I'm not holding anything against you if you're not going to be going in and asking questions. Like I said, you can go in and check back on this video at any stage if you want to go in and do the follow along. I've shared the resource with you. Feel free to go in and share that as far and wide as you need to. Hopefully you've got a little bit of an appreciation as to how easy this is, how useful it might be, and just start thinking about how you can look at integrating it into your learning and teaching practice, how you can support your students to go in and do the same. If you can learn some of these tools, it's going to make life a little bit easier. It's going to make the assessment process a little bit more fun. It's going to build up that confidence with students right at the start of the student journey. So as they go through, when they've got bigger assignments to go in and do, or they've got more work going on, they can start to rely on these confidences that they've built up with digital tools like Express for presentation or for whatever it happens to be. So look, thank you very much. I wish you all the best on your Adobe journeys. Please feel free to reach out to me at any stage. But thank you for joining, and I hope to see you soon. We are running another session on this in a fortnight. So on the 27th, I believe it's in the afternoon. But you can check on your Adobe channels to go in and see when that's going to be. It'll be the same session. So if you've really enjoyed the session, encourage your colleagues to come along. I promise I will pull out some new dad jokes. I will probably be wearing the same jumper, because looking at that photo, I seem to be wearing the same jumper that I was last session. Have a wonderful rest of week, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Thank you, everyone.